Welcome to Live DAF, your online DAF Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem, welcome back to today's DAF, Bava Kamma Yudalad. We got up to the 6th line off the top of the Amud. Eini. We're back to the question of Chatzar HaShutfin. So the Torah, in describing damage inflicted by Shein V'Regel, by way of consumption or trampling, uses the term Ubir Bistei Acher. It occurred in another's field, as opposed to a publicly accessed area like a Rosh Hashanah. There's no liability for Shein V'Regel in those areas. You have a full right to bring your animal along, and if he encounters something good to eat, he'll proceed. And there's no liability for Shein V'Regel, damage by way of consumption or trampling, if it's in a public area. What if it's a Chatzar HaShutfin, a jointly owned property? I own it, and so do you. So the mazik and the nizik, the perpetrator and the victim, both have access to this area. Is there a chiyuv for Shein V'Regel? Is it called ubir b'stei acher? So technically, it's not a public area. It's his place, but it's also my place. So we have machlekes, right? Rav Chizah says you're chayiv because ultimately it's a designated area. It's privately owned. It's called ubir b'stei acher in his field. Rav Lezer says you're pater because just as he has access, so do I. It's more comparable to Rosh Hashanah where you're pater for Shein V'Regel rather than like a privately owned property, exclusive for his use where you're chayiv. So here there's no chayiv. That's your blessed shita. No chayiv for Shein V'Regel. Karen, yes, because as we learned yesterday, Karen is all-encompassing. If an animal deliberately acts aggressively by way of his horns, body checking, kicking, etc., that type of thing is chayiv, even if it's Rishus. But when it comes to Shein V'Regel, in a Chatzar HaShutfin, Rabbi Yehuda says you're pater. Says the Gemara on the 6th line, Eini, is that correct? Is that so, that you're pater? We have a brisa which seems to say otherwise. Vatani Rav Yosef. Rav Yosef presented a brisa which says Chatzar HaShutfim ve'apundak, a jointly owned property, or sort of like a hotel where people come and rent rooms. It's another variation of a Chatzar HaShutfin. Chayiv b'hen ala shein v'ala regel. There's a chayiv. If an animal eats or tramples upon things, Tiyuf to Rabbi Lezer. It's a kasher Rabbi Lezer. It says you're exempt. Amach Rabbi Lezer. Comes back Rabbi Lezer and says like this: V'tizbra masni. Somebody look, do you think there's no machlekes within the braises? I'll show you a different brisa which seems to say differently. That you're pater for Shein V'Regel and a Chatzar HaShutfin v'atanya. Arba klolos hoya Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar ben Zaken. The Tana Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar presented 4 sort of designations regarding, Rashi says, regarding rishuyos, regarding, different types of properties and domains. 4 different categories with different halachas. Number 1, kol shu rishus lenizak v'loy lemazik chayiv v'koil. If it's an area owned strictly by the nizak, so it's Shimon's property, and Reuven comes in there and is mazik, chayiv v'koil is totally chayiv. Whether it's, Karen, whether it's Shein V'Regel, you're chayiv 100%. Nezek shalom, no discounts. On the other hand, the mazik, suppose it's Reuven's property, v'loy l'nizak, and the nizak happened to bring his animal in there and he was harmed, pater. The mazik is pater. We have no business in my backyard. Pater mikol, it's totally pater. Suppose both own the area, kigoin Chatzar HaShutfin, a jointly owned property. Another example, which is v'habika, a valley with fields. So again, it's accessed by many people. Pater ba ala shein v'ala regel. When it comes to Shein V'Regel, you need personal property. Ubir b'stei acher, exclusively his. But if it's jointly owned, it's a Chatzar HaShutfin, there's no chiyuv, and this is in line with Rabbi Lezer's shita. So that pertains to Shein V'Regel, which has this precondition. But when it comes to deliberate damaging, like Karen, Valanagicha, body checking, Valanashicha, biting, Lavitza, deliberate, sitting down on the crouching on the item, vala be'ita, or kicking. So neshicha, sorry, is biting, vala ravitza, is crouching, vala be'ita, kicking. These are all variations of deliberate mazikim. These are subsets of keren, right? So on these we say, well, even if it's a chatzar shutfin, where there's no shein v'regel liability, but keren, it's chayiv even in a real rishus harabim. So it depends. If he's a tam, 50%, misham chatzi nezek. If he's a muad, 100% misham nezek shalom. Loyal this is the fourth designation. It's nor his property. The Gemara later will explain exactly what this is. Kigoyin chatzar she'en shel shneim, doesn't belong to either of them. Chayiv b'el shein v'al regel. So over there, you chayiv for everything, shein v'regel. And likewise, keren and all its variations. Ala negicha, ala neshicha, ala negifa, ala ravitza, ala vita. Ta misham chasei nezek, mud misham nezek shalom. Okay. In any case, what does the Brisa say about a chatzar shutfin, which is the a topic of our discussion? Ketani miyas chatzar shutfin v'abika is there a chiyuv v'shein v'regel? No, that's not designated as stay acher because it's jointly accessed by two people. Pater ba'al shein v'al regel. That's a riot to me, says Rabbi Lezer. Well, now we have a stira between two Brises. How do we get around that? Kashin hadadi. First Brisa says chatzar shutfin like a punduk, like a hotel, you're chayiv for shein v'regel. And the most recent Brisa stated otherwise. Chatzar shutfin like a bika is pater for shein v'regel. How do we reconcile the apparent contradiction? Answer: Kitan yahi. When the second Brisa maintains your pater, we're speaking b'chatzar miyuchedes l'zeh l'zeh bein l'peres bein l'shvarim. It's owned by both the perpetrator and the victim, Reuben and Shimon, and it's meant to be a place for putting of peiros, produce, and also your animals. That's what it's meant for. It was zoned for that purpose. So here, of course, you pater if your animal ate up the other guy's peiros, because you have a full right to bring everything in there, including your animal. It's almost like a rishus harabim. Okay, so when it comes to shein v'regel, you're pater, but a keren you're chayiv even rishus harabim. Ha'id Rav Yosef, as opposed to the first Brisa which Rabbi Yosef presented, where we learned that chatzar shutfin is chayiv for shein v'regel, we're speaking that they're meant to have limited access. They're not meant to bring their animals in there. It's zoned for storing of peiros. So Reuben has a right to bring his peiros, so does Shimon. But it's not meant for shvarim to populate that area. And therefore, we sort of splice it. You have partial access, partial rishus. So if in fact he brings his animal in there, and it consumes his good friend, his partner's peiros, that's really called ubir b'stei acher. It's his, with respect to the presence of your animal, which doesn't belong there. So unauthorized entry of your animal constitutes a chatzar hanizak, with respect to the presence of the animal. Right? You get it? So when it comes to pairs, you both have access. You both own the place, but you have no right to bring your animal in there. If you bring him into this place, it's as though you're bringing your animal into his place, because it doesn't belong there. And that explains why you're chayiv for shein v'regel. This is not your standard chatzar shutfin. No, with respect to the presence of your animal, it is as though it's completely his and not yours. In fact, I'll prove that each brisa reflects a different type of scenario. Because in the second brisa, in describing the chatzar shutfin, it cites an example. In the first brisa, it says like a hotel, where we assume Rashi says there are no animals. They bring their merchandise for sale, right? The business travelers bring along their merchandise. They're not bringing animals there, which will, dirty their merchandise. So it's not a place for animals to access. Uktani hasam doing the bika. Whereas in the second brisa, in describing chatzar shutfin, it cites an example of a bika, a valley full of fields, meant for animals to roam. Oh, shmamino, that proves my point. Maskav Rabbi Zera. I have a question. Kiva the miyuchedes leperos. So what are you telling me? A jointly owned property, meant for storage of pears for both parties, but not for animals. What happens now if I bring my animal in there and he eats the other fellow's pears? I'm chayiv. Why, says Reb Zera? Why? I have full access, full permission to use this place. I can bring my pears as well. So it's not considered his place. It's my place as well. Since it's meant for both parties, for storage of their pears, where do we have the acher? It's not his, it's also mine. Why am I chayiv? Abaye responds very simply, look. Since it's not meant for entry of animals, it's meant for storage of pears, not for animals to access. So when you bring your animal in there, you have no reshus, you have no permission to bring your animals. When you bring it in there, it's as though you're going to the other fellow's house, even though technically you have partial ownership of that yard, of that storage facility. But with respect to you bringing your animal in there, it's considered trespassing. And shein v'regel is chayiv in that respect. You see, we've come up with a beautiful formula to reconcile these two brises. One brisa says chatzar shutfin is chayiv shein v'regel, because we're speaking that they both have full authority to bring everything in there. Sorry. So because we're speaking that they're only meant to store their pears, and when he brings his animal in there, he's trespassing. So it's called bir b'sdei acher. The other brisa which says chatzar shutfin is potav shein v'regel, speaking that they have full permission to bring anything in there, fruit, animals. In which case, if you haven't done anything wrong by bringing your animal in there, it's not called sdei acher. Right? It's that beautiful pshat. Explain the difference in the halachos and the brises. If so, lema, perhaps we shall suggest as follows: this formula, which reconciled the brises, resulting in a non-dispute. It's not machlekes anymore. Each brisa reflects a different circumstance, fully compatible. So perhaps, that whole discussion between Rav Chizda, who said that a chatzar shutfin is chayiv v'shein v'regel, Rav Lezer says he potter, who says there was a machlekes ever? Perhaps they simply reflect different circumstances. All depends on the arrangement and the chatzar shutfin. Amaroi namile pligi. Perhaps he's speaking about one case, he's speaking about another case. Amaroi, he said, yep, right on. It's a good idea. V'imtim selling a pligi, and even if you would insist that there is a machlekes, so if he suggests that there is a machlekes between the two Amoraim, it doesn't mean that they're arguing about every case. Meaning, let's say it is a chatzar shutfin, which can be accessed by both parties for A, storage of fruit, and B, animal entry as well. Then all would agree that you're potter. That's not called bir b'stei acher. I'm not entering I'm not trespassing into his place. The only discussion could be, the only point of machlekes that can possibly be is regarding this type of case where it's sort of split. It's meant for both of our storage, purposes, peres, but not for animals. And what's the machlekes? Remember, we just had this back and forth between Reb Zera and Abaye. We said, well, if it's meant for peres, then if I bring my animal in there, why am I chayiv? It's also my place for peres. That was Reb Zera's kasha. And Abaye says, well, we sort of split it. The function, we split it. Regarding peres, I have access. Regarding animals, I don't. So when I bring my animal, it's as though I'm trespassing. That was sort of the back and forth. So that svara, that argument, that dialogue, can be perhaps the basis for disagreement between Rav Chizda and Rav Lezer as well. Precisely this point. Because the Rav Zera, the kasha of Rav Zera, will be prukad Abaye, and Abaye's response, pligi, that's the machlekes between Rav Chizda and Rav Lezer as well. So again, bottom line is, we're coming out that apparently if it's a chatzar shutfin, which they can both access fully with peiros and shvarim, there's no issue of shein v'regel here, because it's not called bir b'stei acher. It's also mine just as much as his. The question is only when we both own it for storage purposes, but then I go ahead and I sort of overstep my authority. I bring my animal in there, and the animal goes and eats the other fellow's stuff. So there we have perhaps you have a machlekes. Is it considered bir b'stei acher due to the fact that I'm bringing in an animal without permission, or perhaps it's not stei acher because technically it's also my place? Gufa, let's go back to this brisa. Arba'a klolis. Rabbi Shimon Elazar ibn Zaken. So Rabbi Shimon presented four, different types of territory, different types of domains regarding halachas of damages. Kol sherushus lanizik. If the area is owned by the victim, v'loy lamazik, and the mazik has no permission to be there, chay b'koil, he's fully responsible, 100%. Now, al hakoil ktani, rather than using the term al hakoil, which would indicate all variations of damaging, like keren and shein v'regel, it doesn't say that. El chayv b'koil, you're fully responsible, fully liable for the entire damage that you did, as opposed to getting sort of that 50% discount. B'kulei nezek, you're fully responsible. So even if you did keren and you're a tam, 100% liability. Why? Because it took place in his place. Chatzar nizik. That sort of bumps it up. Mani, who is speaking here? Rabbi Tarfani. He holds the Amar Mishuna Keren, this unusual, deliberate damaging, which is just a way of referring to Keren, which is not typical for an animal to go and be aggressive and deliberately try to damage. So in any case, if any Keren happens, B'chatzar HaNizik, in the Nizik's area, Nezik Shalom Mishalom, you pay 100%. No discounts for a tam. Okay, so that seems to be the opinion of this price. Let's move on to the next part of the price. If the damage occurs in a place which is loyla zev nor his place, place that doesn't belong to either of them, chayiv bal shein regel, you're chayiv. Now, who owns this place? My loyla zev neither him nor him own the area. Who belong? Ilema loyla zev klal. Are we speaking that Reuben and Shimon, the Mazik and Nizik, both have no ownership in this place? Rather, it's a third party's property. Levi owns it. So why you chayiv for shein v'regel against Shimon in Levi's property? Ubir b'stei acher v'leka. The chiv of shein v'regel is strictly when it occurs in the chatzar of the nizak, as opposed to this case. Veleka, and this doesn't apply in this case. El pshita, so it must be loyla zev means el dachad. It's not jointly owned by Reuben and Shimon. Rather, one of these two, Reuben or Shimon, owns it. Oktani seifa. And what does the Brisa say when it comes to any sort of keren damages? Tam mishalem chatzi nezek, umud mishalem nezek shalom. If you're a tam, you get a 50% discount. That's not Rabbi Tarfon speaking. Evidently, we shifted to a different opinion. Asan the Rabbanon. This is Rabbanon's shita. The Amr you hold that a Karen is always going to pay 50% if he's a tam, regardless of where it happens. In my place, in your place, Mishun Karen, even the Chatz b'Chatzar Nizik, Chatz Nizik to the Mishalom. So we seem to have shifted within the same brisa. We changed our opinion. Reisha Rabbi Tarfon, the first part of the brisa, which indicates that Karen is always 100% liable. If it took place in the Chatzar Nizik, that's Rabbi Tarfon shita. The Sefer Rabbanon. Next part of the brisa is the Rabbanon, who hold that Karen is always 50% if it's a tam. That must be the pshat. The Amar Shmuel. Shmuel turned to Rabbi Yehuda and he said, "Shin, a sharp one. Shvoik mas nissen esabasroi. Abandon your efforts to try to reconcile the entire Mishnah from beginning to end based on one shita. Follow me." Evidently, there's a split within the Mishnah. This is regarding a Mishnah later on DAF Tesvav. We're sort of borrowing the concept here, and we're saying, stop trying to, figure out the whole Mishnah with the Brisa according to one Shita, Reish, Rabbi Tarfon, Sefer Rabban, you're right. Part A is Rabbi Tarfon, part B is Rabban. Ravina Mishmei the Rava Amar, he has a different approach, and he says, Kula Rabbi Tarfon. The whole Mishnah is Rabbi Tarfon speaking. First part's good. Karen chatzar nizik, 100% payment. Umay loy lezeh v'loy lezeh. So let's move on to the last part of the Bryce. Loy lezeh v'loy lezeh. What is that? What does that describe? It means like this. They both own this area, this yard. Loy lezeh v'loy lezeh leperis el dachad. It means like this. It's not meant for both of theirs storage purposes. Only one. Shimon is meant to put his peris in there. Only Shimon is meant to use it for his storage. But when it comes to storing their animals, they both have right to do that. So now, it's sort of the reverse of the other case. The legabi shein. When it comes to shein damages, it's called chatzar nizik, because with respect to the presence of peris, only Shimon had a right to do so. Only Shimon had that type of usage rights. So if there was any shein damages, it's called chatzar nizik with respect to shein. So if Reuven's animal ate up Shimon's stuff, it's shein b'chatzar nizik. L'gabi keren. On the other hand, if the damage was of a keren variety, a deliberate aggressiveness, since both Reuven and Shimon have full rights to bring their animals into this place, so it sort of changes designation regarding keren. It's like a public area. We both have a right to bring our animals. And in the Rishus Harabim, the ballgame changes. It's no longer 100% liability in all circumstances. Even Rabbi Tarfon agrees. Keren Rishus Harabim, well, it depends what you are. Are you innocent? Are you a first-time offender? Are you a tam? 50%. Only a more than 100%, but a tam is 50%. So Ravina explains this last part of the Brisa in a way which is consistent with Rabbi Tarfon's concept. But here we're not speaking about that type of case. We're talking where, with respect to shein, it's Rishus HaNizak. With respect to keren, it's Rishus HaRabim. There's no reason to give you 100% liability. It's Rishus HaRabim. If that's the pshat arba, so why does Reb Shimon? Why did the Brisa say we have 4 separate designations? Really, this last one is just sort of like it's just a retooled equation. It's not really a new concept. It's sort of like taking previously discussed elements and sort of reconfiguring a new case based on previously mentioned precepts. So why do we present like 4 separate, categories? Yochi arba, shloishav. It's just 3. Right? We know about chatzar nizik. We know about chatzar mazik. We know about joint area. This is sort of just another variation. Rav Nachman Yitzchak, you're right. You're right. Shloisha klolis barba mekaymis. The Brisa is presenting 3 rules, which have 4 applications. Rashi explains, because in reality we only learn 3 halachas. If something occurs in Rishus HaNizak, you pay 100%. Rishus HaMazik, you're totally potter. You have no business being here. Chatzar Shutfin. So then, when it comes to keren, if you're the tam, 50%. Shein v'regel, you're potter. Right? So the concepts are 3, but we came up with another sort of variation, ba'arba mekoymos, which gives us sort of a 4th circumstance, which is just sort of a combination of the other elements. Okay, continues the Mishnah. So we know that a mazik is fully responsible. The question is how we go about compensating. So Mishnah gives us, in very brief format, 8 halachas. Shum kesef, and the Gemara will explain all these. Shum kesef, shava kesef, b'fnei bezin, v'al pi edim, b'nei chayrim, b'nei bris, v'anoshim v'chal nezek, v'nezek v'mazik v'tashlum. Let's see the Gemara. My shum kesef, what does that mean, shum kesef? Rabbi Yehuda shum zeh, when bezin, evaluates the damages, lo yehei ela b'kesef. It's based on monetary value. Kesef. What does that mean? Tanina lo tan Rabbana. Our Mishnah is basically supporting a halacha mentioned in a brisa, which now indicates that the halacha in the brisa is in fact a well-established and accepted halacha. What is the halacha? You can't just sort of guesstimate. There has to be a real, official, formal appraisal of the damages, and that's what you pay. Tana Rabbanan. Para shizika talis. Imagine a para, cow, damaged a garment. Or the other way around, the talis shizika para. A para, sort of slipped on a talis in the street, and the talis injured the para. We don't just say, look, tit for tat, take this and leave me alone. Take a para b'talis. In the case where the para damaged the talis, we'll say, okay, the baal of the talis will just grab the para and go home. Irrespective of the amount of damage and the value of the para, he just runs away with the para. Or, in the case where the talis damaged the para, you don't say, well, the baal a para grabs the talis but para. You don't say, tit for tat, let's call it a deal. Elasham and oisa b'damim, rather Bezdin sits down and evaluates monetarily, and value-wise, exactly what happened, how much damage, and that's how much he pays. Shavak kesef, what does that mean? Tana Rabbanan, Shavak kesef, malamed, shein Bezdin is kakin, el nechasim sheish lam achrayis. So Bezdin only accesses nechasim that are secure. This is another term. It's a point of reference for real estate, which is something secure, which you can fall back on when there's a default on the loan, or if there are any damages that need to be paid. That's what's called yesh lam achrayis. So basically, Bezdin only collects real estate for payment of damages. Avolim kodam nizak v'tafas metalvan. But if the nizak, the victim, grabs any sort of belongings belonging to the perpetrator, Bezdin goyven leman, Bezdin allows him to collect from that as well. Let's go back and review this halacha, which sounds a bit surprising. Shavak kesef, the words in the Mishnah Shavak kesef indicate to us that Bezdin only collects from real estate. Malamed shein Bezdin is skakin elo nechasim shleisham achrayis. They only collect from real estate. My mashma. Where do we see that the Mishnah is speaking about real estate? In the words Shavak Kesef, what do we see real estate? Amar Rabba Barula. Davar HaShavak Kol Kesef. Because real estate is something which is basically worth anything you pay for it. What does that mean? So Rashi says, typically, if a person overpays upon purchasing an item, there's something called oina. So if it's a significant overpayment, so he gets refunded. But that doesn't apply. The halachas of oina don't apply to certain things, like karka, buying real estate, and likewise slaves or documents, which is discussed later on in Bava Metzia, DAF and Vav. So halachically, anything you pay for the karka is considered a valid deal, and that's why the Mishnah calls it shavak kesef. It's worth anything. Davar shavak kol kesef. Ma'iniu. Davar shein lo ina. Something on which the halachas of ina or overpayment do not apply. Asks the Gemara, so why are you limiting this to real estate? Avodah mishtaris nami. I know. We know that I know does not apply to purchase of slaves or documents. Ela marabar ulam davar nikne bekesef. Shavak kesef is a reference to land because it's something which is purchased by way of money. Right? You can be koine karka by paying money, as opposed to, let's say, a car or any other mitaltlin. Kesef does not really conclude the kinyan, you need to do mashiach, etc. So that's what the Mishnah meant when it said it's shavak kesef, something which kesef concludes the deal on. So it's karka. Asks the Gemara, avodah mishtaris nami, there as well. Nikne bekesef. Just like kesef accomplishes kinyan for karka, does the same for avodim, slaves or shtaris. Elam Ravashi, I'll tell you the pshat in the Mishnah. How do we know shavak kesef refers to property? Shavak kesef. It's worth money, but it isn't money. It isn't a commodity that's just bought and sold on the market. Shavak kesef v'loy kesef. It doesn't have the kesef designation. It's only shavak kesef. It's valued with kesef. It has monetary value, but it's not a commodity which you import and export and sell as though it's kesef itself. V'hani kulu kesef ninu, as opposed to other items of value like metaltalin, belongings, commodities. They're designated as kesef. Why? Because they're easily, transported, imported, exported, and sold at the market. They're closer to actual money than real estate is. Real estate is a stationary, passive entity, right? You can't just take it with you and sell it off in a different, right? So it's called shava kesef. It certainly has value, but it's not called kesef itself. Now the question is like this: Rabbi Yehuda, he asked the question, Rav Huna Brei Rabbi Shua. Tana, so the Brisa, in explaining the Mishnah, says shava kesef. What does that mean? Which sounds like Bezdin will only allow you to collect for damages through real estate. But the Brisa that we learned a couple of days ago tells us you can repay with anything. Yashib, you can repay. That's an extra pasuk. L'Rabbi shava kesef. I feel subnik. You can use anything for repayment of damage, even brand, not just real estate. That's why we limiting it to real estate. Answers the Gemara. You're right. Typically, you can pay anything to compensate for damages. Here we're speaking biyasmi. Father was responsible for damages. He passed away. Now we have the orphans. You can't collect metaltalin from Yisayim, and that's the halacha. The only way you can access the estate is if you have land and real estate, which was inherited to them by the father. Asks the Gemara, Ibi Yasmi. Okay, so if the Brisa is speaking about Yisayim Ima Sefer, continue on. What does the Brisa say? Ideally, we collect real estate, but im kadam nizak metafas metaltalin. If the nizak, if the victim jumped ahead and grabbed some belongings, Bezdin govilim mihen, so Bezdin allows him to keep that. Well, if we're speaking about Yisayim, that's incorrect. Ibi Yasmi, Amai Bezdin govilim mihen. You have no right to collect from Yisayim's metaltalin. That's halacha. Answers the Gemara, Kedama Rav, as Rav told us elsewhere. Kedama Rav, Amar Rav Nachman, Shetavas Michayim. That was speaking that this fellow took possession of these metaltalin as compensation for his damages during the lifetime of the father. Achanami here as well. The Brisa is speaking about that very same case. Shetavas Michayim. He took it during the lifetime, and items grabbed during father's lifetime are legitimate candidates for compensation of hezek, something which he cannot do if he hadn't done it during father's lifetime. So again, of course, your typical mazik can pay using anything. But by Yisayimim, where this fellow is trying to recover his losses, which occurred during their father's lifetime, so he has a choice. Either he grabs karka, which was given to them by their father, which is committed to their father's debts, or if he's lucky enough to have grabbed metaltalin mechayim of the father, that can do as well. Mishnah continues. Compensation is only bifnei bezdin. What does that mean? As opposed to what? Prat l'moichan chasav, a fellow was liable for damages. He sold off his properties. Now they showed up to bezdin. He has nothing left. That's it. You can't collect anything. He has nothing during the time of litigation. Asks the Gemara, what do you mean? But he was already committed to that. Shma min lava u'machar nechasav. So you mean to say if a person borrows $1 million, then he sells off all his buildings, and then he shows up to Bezdin. I'm here, but I have nothing left. You mean Bezdin cannot access his property? Of course they could, because they were already committed. They were meshubah to the loan. So why do we say if you sell off your stuff, you pat Ella? You're right. That's not what we're speaking about. Of course, he's fully responsible. Ella prat Bezdin hadyotis. The Mishnah says that you need Bezdin involved. It means to say that only a qualified Bezdin has a right to carry out these halachis, as opposed to a Bezdin or just simpletons not well versed in the halachis. And the Mishnah continues. Another precondition for payment is al pi edim. The case must be presented by way of edim. Prat, as opposed to lemoide beknas v'achakach bo edim shu pater. As opposed to a case where a fellow admitted to doing something which incurs a fine, a penalty. So if he's moide b'knas, we know that you're pater. Suppose he was moide in the knas, and then Edom come along and tell us about the story. So we don't need his admission anymore. He's pater, because once he became pater through his admission, that remains permanently. So that's what the Mishnah means when it says api Edom. The Edom had to come before he admitted, because if he admits first, he's pater. Okay, we'll continue with Hashem tomorrow. Let's just summarize today's DAF. We discussed the halacha of chatzar shutfin. We had a machlokes amoraim, and we found two brises which seem to have the same machlokes. Ultimately, we came up with a resolution because we're speaking on different types of cases. If it's a situation where he has a right to bring in his animal, then he shouldn't be chayiv, as opposed to the case in the brisa where he had no right to bring in his animal. So all agree that regarding the presence of his animal, it's called bir b'stei acher, and he's chayiv. Well, the Gemara says at the end that perhaps the machlokes amoraim isn't really a machlokes, and even if there is a machlokes, it's only in a very specific case where they both had access to the peiros storage facility, but only one of them actually brought in his animal in an unauthorized fashion. And the machlokes is whether it's called bir b'stei acher due to the fact that he had no right to bring in his animal, or do we say no? It's still his place, and therefore it's not called bir b'stei acher, and he's pater on shem v'regel. We had a brisa with basically three halachas pertaining to various types of domains with 4 applications. The Mishnah, which says you have to be careful. Bezdin appraises and evaluates the actual damage, and that's what you pay. There's no, guesstimation. When it comes to Yisraelim, you can only access their karka, unless he was teifas and metalton rachayim, and you must make sure that the Bezdin is comprised of qualified dayanim. All the best to you, and Hatzlacha Rabbah.